Hey guys, welcome back. So today we're out at the range to do a classic Mac type video. You may remember our gauntlet tests where we subjected handguns to water, sand, dirt, mud, all that stuff. And yes, I've read the comments and I know you guys want to see those tests resume, and maybe some point in the future we will. But this is a different type of test. I've been reading comments on X, and a couple of the comments I read I thought were rather interesting, where people, when I would post a picture of the AR-15 and other folks were posting pictures of AR-15s and asking which is your favorite weapon system, the AR or the AK, I keep seeing the same comment over and over again about just how incredibly reliable the AK is and just how incredibly unreliable the AR-15 is, specifically in let's say desert type environments. Those are the comments I've been seeing most recently. So we're not going to do the sand, dirt, mud, and water. We are going to do a Moondust test. And yes, out here on the Mac range, this used to be underwater many, many moons ago, but it was cleared of water and turned into farmland. But it has left behind this interesting mix of a very fine powder of sand and dirt. But this stuff is like talcum powder. It gets into everything. We've been out here shooting handguns and stuff for video that weren't intended to be reliability tests, accidentally drop the magazine or gun into the Moondust that's out here, and the gun just stops working. It gets into everything and would not resume working until we thoroughly cleaned it. So that's why we've chosen this particular material. The first rifle in the test we're going to use is this Saiga 7.62x39. Yes, this is a pre-band rifle, and it is valuable, I get that, but we wanted to use a Russian rifle so there would be no tomfoolery in the comments, which is still going to happen, but try to minimize the tomfoolery in the comments saying, well, you used American junk, you should have used a Russian rifle. So we will use a Russian rifle. And then on the other side of the house, we have a BCM Mark II upper AR-15, one of my favorite AR-15 manufacturers. We did 10,000 rounds through one over a 5-year period with minimal problems, really no hardcore malfunctions. The gun just started to succumb to the carbon buildup inside of it. But anyway, the gun proved to be extremely reliable. So this is the rifle we're going to use in today's test. Now, the two different rifles we have out here obviously have two completely different types of operating mechanisms. You know, the AK has a bolt loosely based on the M1 Garand, a two-lug rotating bolt, and a long-stroke gas piston. On the AR-15, we have what most people refer to as direct gas impingement. It's an internal piston, not going to get into that in this video. And then it has its own locking system and bolt carrier system that differs considerably from the AK. So we're going to see which one of these rifles does the best using the Moondust. We'll explain the testing process here in the next segment. But I also want to point out that other rifles exist out there, like this PWS, and this rifle is a marriage of the technologies used between the two other rifles we'll be testing this afternoon. It has a long-stroke gas piston like an AK, but then it has a bolt and carrier more like the AR-15. So it's an interesting blend of the two systems. So after we get done with these two, we'll subject this rifle to the same test. So this should be really fun. I'm looking forward to giving this a try. I honestly don't know what to expect. Anything can go wrong. You can get just a pinch of dirt into the wrong area and a gun can go down. There's just nothing you can do about it. I also want to put this disclaimer out there. Don't do this at home. And secondly, this is not a scientific test, okay? This is redneck science, but it's still informative. Take from it what you will. With all that being said, let's get started with today's video because I think this is going to be a lot of fun. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. All right, so the basic test procedure will be this. We're going to do the test to the gun, each gun, twice, and it'll go like this. We have 15 rounds loaded into each magazine. In the case of the AK, we'll be using some Norma. This is some extremely high quality ammunition. It's 124 grain projectile, and it's rated at 2,430 feet per second. And what we're going to do is we're going to take each rifle. We're going to start off on the back side, dump a little bit of dirt on the areas that would be critical to function, so like the gas port up here and then the receiver. We're not going to worry about the stock and all that other stuff. So it's going to be primarily here and here on the AK. Then we'll flip her over and we'll dump some dirt here and dump some dirt here. The first time around, we will have the safety on with the AK, and with the AR, we will have the port cover closed. Then in the second round of testing, we will do the same thing over again, but this time on the AK, we'll leave the safety in the fire position, and on the AR, we'll leave the port cover open. All the rifles will be test fired or have already been test fired to confirm function before we started filming with the ammunition that we have out here. And I'll explain the ammunition here in a moment for the AR-15s. All right, so with all that being said, let's get started with our test. We're going to start off with the Russian AK, and we will be using the PMags with the Norma ammunition. All right, guys, I've collected up some Moondust. Let's get started with this party. First, I'm going to flip the rifle over here. I'm going to dump a little bit of this Moondust up here on the gas system. I'm going to dump more of it back here on the operating mechanism, around the trigger and stuff like that. Then I'm going to flip her over, make sure that safety's on, and dump some up there. We'll come back here and cover up the receiver area. We'll grab our magazine. I'm not going to purposely shake the gun. I'm just going to pick it up and let the dirt fall off. And we'll walk over here. Not shooting any targets. That isn't the point of today's video. Going to go ahead and load the rifle up. Put it in fire. Charge it. I could already see dirt inside there. And let's see how she does. 15 rounds. That was interesting. I felt a delay in the trigger. I could tell there was a little bit of dirt in the trigger already, even with the cover closed, the safety lever closed. All right, so this time we will do the same thing, but we will leave the safety open. I should collect up a little bit more Moondust here. You can see exactly where I'm getting it. Put a little bit over the gas system, put a little bit over the receiver, roll her over, a little bit over the gas system, and what's left over the receiver. All right, so of course we have a big wide opening there, and yes, stuff got into the trigger of the AK. How much of an effect will that have? We don't know. So let's find out. I'm going to purposely shake it a whole bunch. Walk over here with our 15 rounds in Norma. I can feel the dirt already flowing out of it. Go ahead and lock that magazine in. Take a look inside there. You can see a lot of dirt around the chamber area. And again, folks, don't do this at home. I'd like to think we're trained professionals, at least in redneck science. 15 rounds, here we go. All right, so she functioned just fine. Not totally shocking. The Moondust, I was a little concerned with because when I opened that safety lever, a lot of it can get in there, but I've also shot enough AKs over the years to know that probably mud getting in there or small chunks of rock and things like that is more detrimental to the operation of the rifle than Moondust, but I wasn't quite sure. Now we know. Now let's go over to the BCM and see how it does doing the same test. All right, guys, up next is the BCM. We have it here. We have already taken this weapon out. We have test fired it, confirmed function, and everything is working as it should. So the only thing left to do now is to give it the dirt test. So we have, in this case, the bolt is home, the port cover is closed, and we're just going to flip the rifle over. I'm going to dump a little bit of dirt up here on the gas system. It's not going to make any difference, but most of the dirt needs to go back here because this is where most of the action takes place. So let's go ahead and flip this weapon over. And I'll put a little bit over here by the gas block. Other than that, it's just a barrel. And then cover up the receiver. Hey, look at that, a spent case up off the ground. All right, then we'll just flip her over. The same thing up here. Cover up the gas block a little bit, and then we'll just kind of go over the receiver there. All right, look, more spent cases. All right, so we got some regular old M193 ball from Federal. And I do want to thank our friends over at Federal for supplying the ammunition free of charge to the channel. It certainly helps us out quite a bit. Been shooting this stuff for my entire life. Absolutely love it. With that being said, let's go ahead and try not to purposely shake this off too much. Go ahead and put that in there. And here we go, 15 rounds. All right, so the only other test we got to do now Let's go ahead and drop that bolt. Weapon is unsafe. Going to leave the port cover open. I do have to grab a little bit more Moondust here. So go to our Moondust supply cabinet. Grab it in there. Get a little bit more. All right, that should be enough. And we'll do the same thing once again. A little bit of dirt up there, doesn't really matter. More dirt back here. Flip her over. A little bit of dirt up there. Whole bunch of dirt back here. All those spent cases. All right. Grab another magazine full of ammunition. Try to shake it off as little as possible. All right, here we go. Up, forward assist. We'll have to break it open and cock it. So what's interesting is with the AR-15, because it had dirt on the bolt carrier, obviously that applies more friction, and so when I let the bolt go home, it just barely wasn't into battery. Used the forward assist as it was intended, but I already had a click, no bang, so I just cracked it open, cocked the hammer, did nothing else, closed it back up, and ran the 15 rounds through it. All right, so which did better? Well, probably the AK, because it went into battery when I charged it. So yeah, poor AR-15, but she still cycled just fine. I don't know, given the good performance of both rifles, let's try something a little different before we go over to the PWS, because I want to push things just a little bit further. You know, as you're getting a little bit older, you kind of get the shakes, and sometimes you kind of don't forget what you're doing. So right in the middle of the heat of the battle, or whatever the threat is, you, for some reason, accidentally disassemble your rifle. And decide you want to do basic maintenance on it. And in the process, you drop your rifle in the dirt. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and drop the bolt and carrier of both weapons in the dirt. So we'll just roll them around in the dirt, make them all dirty. All right. Do a quick shake, because if you did drop it, you're not going to not shake it a little bit, right? But you're not going to be able to do a whole lot. Just rub your fingers on it. That's about the best you can hope to do, because you got to get your weapon back together. I'm kind of thinking the AK may do pretty good here. All right. Get on in there. Come on. Oh yeah, she's fine. She's fine. And here we go, 15 rounds of Norma. All right, well, the AK's doing pretty darn good. What do you guys think the AR is going to do? Well, there's an easy way to find out. Go ahead and open up our AR here. You know, I was just screwing around, and for whatever reason, I dropped my bolt and carrier in the dirt. And roll it all around in there, cover it all up. Right, keep an eye, I'm going to shake it off. Get it as clean as I can with my hands, but I'm in a hurry. So now I got to throw her back in the gun. Yeah, charging handle isn't quite back far enough there. All right, close her up. And now I'm going to go ahead and load the weapon up. Have 15 rounds. Use that forward assist, because I don't think she's fully in battery there. Just make sure. And 15 rounds. So there, the forward assist worked as it's supposed to. I noticed it was just slightly out of battery, and the gun ran just fine. So do you want to ding the AR-15 for the use of the forward assist, something it was purposely designed to be used with the weapon in such adverse conditions? Well, go ahead. A lot of folks out there have had the debate, and I've taken part in some of those debates, about the forward assist. Should you have one on your fighting rifle, or should you not? I think what I've learned from this video, and maybe you have learned something from it as well, is that maybe the forward assist does provide an important function. So something to consider. All right, so I'd say both of these military type rifles have done exceptionally well. Probably a little bit better than I thought they would. Next up is the PWS. All right, guys, so next up is the PWS Mark 116 Mod 2-M. This rifle, again, has a long stroke gas piston in it. We have test fired this weapon to confirm function with the ammunition we have out here this afternoon. Everything seems to be working just fine, so there's no reason for this thing not to work. Now, one thing that's really interesting to point out is that this particular firearm does not have a forward assist. So if the bolt doesn't go into battery, the most I can try to do is to help it home with my thumb on the bolt carrier. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. With all that being said, let's get started with our test. We have 2 magazines with 15 rounds each of the Federal M193 ball. I'm going to go ahead and flip the weapon over. Now, over here on the gas port, there are some holes in the gas tube to bleed off excess gas. It also has an adjustable gas system. It's important to note that in this particular model, it is set up, has 2 suppressor settings, high back pressure, low back pressure, and standard operation. It is set for the standard operation mode. We'll come over here, dump some dirt on this side, flip her over, do the same thing up here with the gas system, and the same thing back here. And then without shaking her off too much, come over here and load the weapon up. All right, not surprised, it worked. Now you will notice this weapon has no sights on it. That's because I took the optic off. There's no reason to get the optic all credit up in this test. Optic is not part of the test. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is leave this open, get rid of these 2 spent cases, and resume the test after I refresh my Moondust. Let's grab a little bit more here. We're going for the dry stuff. Don't want to dig down too far where the moisture is. All right. And once again, up here by the gas system, over the receiver area, make sure it's all covered good. Flip her over, up by the gas system. I really don't want to clean these this afternoon, but guess what I have to do? All right, without shaking her off too much, I will just turn it sideways just a wee bit, load it, and here we go. No forward assist. How's that going to work? Chambered just fine. Is she going to work? I think she may just work fine. Ran just fine, no forward assist. All right. Well, what we did to the other rifles, I guess we got to do to this one, but this is a little bit different and a little bit more challenging because field stripping one of these isn't quite as simple as field stripping a standard DI type AR-15. Let me demonstrate. I'm setting down for this one because it's a little bit more challenging. And I also apologize. We brought the rifle out with the Lancer magazine. I think we used that in the last test. We need to be using P-mags, try to be consistent, but whatever. All right, so we've loaded the P-mag up. Now to take this rifle apart, just gonna make sure she's clear. Pop it open. I haven't done this in a while. I haven't practiced it today, but there's a little trick you gotta do. Where you draw this out like that. And then you have a segmented gas system. The T-handle rides over the long stroke gas piston here. If you want to take all that apart, which I don't think I'm going to, you twist this piece. Yeah, we're not going to mess with all that. We're just try to get it all dirty this way. All right, so I take it out of my rifle for whatever reason, and I drop it in the dirt, and I have to roll it all around. And now I got to put it back together. I'll shake it off as best I can, wipe it. I can't blow, can't blow. Let's do that again. I don't want to blow one. I didn't blow on the other ones. All right, shake it off, wipe it off as best I can. And then you got to play this little game of put the gas piston in, try to line up the T-handle. Once you get used to these, I guess it goes pretty smoothly. Just I'm not used to them. Okay, did it. All right, let's go see how she does. And no forward assist, but we do have some pretty deep cuts. You see it's considerably out of battery. I'm going to try to help it home. And I don't have enough thumb force to push it into battery. All right, definitely do not do this at home. What I'm about to do is extremely dangerous. Well, potentially dangerous, let's say. Wow. In the absence of a forward assist, I don't know if that's closed enough or not. Let's see. If we get a click, no bang, we'll know. Click, no bang. So it was not enough. Apparently, that bolt is just far enough back where I can't, even though it's just barely out of battery, I can't open the rifle. We do have a live round in the chamber. I'm gonna have to find a tree. Trees are good. Or wood. There we go. All fixed. There's no problem that cannot be resolved without an adequate amount of force. I believe that's Marine Corps doctrine. All right. Should be cocked and ready to go. Let's see if she can fire 15 rounds. Oh, I could feel the bolt and carrier being really sluggish. Click, no bang. What do we get? There's just a failure to pick one up out of the magazine. Click, no bang. Bolt's all the way closed. Just not picking one up out of the magazine. And she finished it out. So, how's the PWS stack up against the BCM or the AK? Hot garbage! So what is my final take on today's testing? Well, I have them stacked up in the order in which I think they performed. I think the AK ever so slightly outperformed the AR-15. But I do want to say that the AR-15, the BCM, that was user error, operator error. That's me. I should have checked the bolt carrier to make sure it's not in battery. It's a very easy visual check. I could have looked. You can reach up there and feel. I chose not to. I just assumed the bolt and carrier were in battery. They were not. Had I noticed and used the forward assist the first time around, the gun would have worked just fine, as I demonstrated the second time we did the test, and the bolt carrier was slightly out of battery. I whacked the forward assist, and lo and behold, the gun worked just fine. That's what the forward assist is for. I chose not to use it. My mistake. So therefore, I take blame for that malfunction. With that being said, the AK didn't have any of those problems. It also has a forward assist. It's called a charging handle, and that's what it's there for. You can beat that bolt closed if necessary. If you get things so gunked up you can't get it closed. So the AK, ever so slightly, I would say in this particular test, probably did outperform my beloved BCM, but this is still a rifle I would take over the AK. Now let's talk about the PWS. All right, so I called it hot garbage, guys. I was just kidding around. PWS makes beautiful firearms. I was just trying to be funny. Hopefully you got the gag, me chucking the rifle and calling it hot garbage. In reality, they're very nicely made firearms. Now, the problem with this particular model, the Mark 116 Mod 2 Delta, I believe, or I'm sorry, Mike, this one does not have a forward assist. But if you're still interested in this type of operating system, they do offer them with forward assists. So I would recommend personally, if you're going to pick up a PWS like this rifle, go ahead and opt for the forward assist if you plan on using it as a fighting rifle or a go-to rifle. Because look, the test that we did out here today, folks, it is realistic in the sense that if you find yourself in a life or death situation with your rifle, there's a very good chance you're going to find yourself on the ground or rolling around on the ground or not being able to maintenance it for quite some time. And so it's a very high probability you might get some dirt into it. And that's what this test was demonstrating. What happens if you just superficially get some dirt into it, and then we took it a step further and actually put dirt on the bolt and carriers, and they still did pretty darn good. So in order of performance, AK, BCM, and the PWS. But I'm going to say I still like the AR-15 better, but that's just me. What do you guys think? How do you think the AR-15 performed? Would you count that as a malfunction or user error? On the AK, well, there's not much to say. It worked. And what are your thoughts on the PWS and the long stroke gas piston system? Me personally, not a big fan of hybrid systems like this. I just don't see a benefit to it. You saw what it was like, me just trying to disassemble the thing. It just adds, in my opinion, unnecessary complexity. But it's still a very interesting system, and I do enjoy shooting it. Let me know down in the comments if you guys would like to comment down below and let me know what other tests like this you might want to see. If you would like us to do a different type of test to these rifles, let us know in the comments. If there's different types of firearms you'd like to see us do this type of a test to, again, let us know in the comments, because I do try to stick around for the first couple of days after I post a new video to read those comments and answer any questions you guys may have. If you would like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, the best possible way to do that is to become part of our Patreon family. You'll get some extra perks, and there's a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you got the subscribe button underneath the video player you're watching right now. Mash that subscribe button, and you can help support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. I truly want to thank you guys for 17 years of support. Swing by, check out Copper Custom, and we'll talk to you guys soon.